Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ChessDiagnostic. Today, we're going to look at a puzzle, and I'm also going to talk about quality versus quantity in chess study. So, I've been thinking about, going slow versus just, zipping through a million master games. I guess I read somewhere that Kramnik, he goes through like 500 chess games a day. And then there's other people who advocate, taking 6 months to study, one book or something like that. So it's quite interesting to see the difference in what people think. Even, very strong players, they'll have very different opinions on what you should do. So I'm of the opinion that the best times that I've improved is kind of when I play slow games and when I don't really overload myself with chess information, and I just focus on applying kind of what I already know. There is a lot of information you can learn about chess, but there is a big difference between knowing a lot of information and being able to apply it and play better. I don't really care about knowing a lot of information. I mostly care about playing well. All right, so I think in the future, videos going forward, I'm going to try to have a puzzle at the beginning of each video, whether it's from a game or even a puzzle video, just so that the viewers who watch, they can get practice, and if they watch the video, then they'll at least get something out of it right away. So just getting that out of the way, let's get into this puzzle, and let's start from the white side. Obviously, let's see how we would break it down. So in this puzzle, what you want to do in any puzzle, basically in any position, is you want to evaluate the material first, and you can see that we have a rook for a rook, bishop for bishop, queen for queen, and the pawns are equal. Each opponent has 5 pawns. And now from there, you want to evaluate the positional aspects. So you notice that the rook is kind of over on the side, and he has these doubled pawns, somewhat weak, that you could attack. But his queen and bishop are very active. And if this queen wasn't here protecting g4, then actually it would be a mate in 1 next move. So keep that in mind. So from there, what you'd want to do is you'd want to look for the forcing moves. So if you want to pause the video at any point, you can try to solve it. And when I say try to solve it, what I mean is apply your existing thought process. Because the whole point of trying to solve puzzles is not necessarily to solve the puzzle. It's to figure out what's wrong in your thinking. And if you miss the puzzle, then you want to figure out what you can adjust in your own thought process to improve. You don't just want to, say, oh, I recognize this pattern. And of course, they talk a lot about pattern recognition in chess, which is important, but it should be as a consequence of you providing yourself a framework in your thinking. And you should recognize patterns and say, okay, well, I remember I applied this thought process and this was the pattern that was present in the position. You shouldn't go trying to memorize a bunch of patterns and then just play from that. I think that having the framework is the most important thing. All right, so if we break down this position, basically you want to look at the checks, captures, threats. You can see that the queen would just love to come here and then checkmate next move. But of course, if queen to f8, then you always need to keep in mind what your opponent can do, and he would just checkmate. So you want to do something forcing. So there's rook check and bishop check. And that's really the first key in getting better. I would say even getting to expert or master level. You'd be surprised how strong you can play if you just notice all the forcing moves. And that should be a habit that you practice in any position, and it's more application of logic. And I think Botvinnik had a quote where he was talking about basically maybe it was Lasker or Botvinnik, but they both kind of talked about the same thing, where you apply logic in chess, and you shouldn't really focus on just the memorization of it. It should be, which basically they were talking about the thought process. All right, so we noticed the bishop check and the rook check. So what you want to do is you want to look at the possible lines. So you visualize, and you're really improving your visualization and your calculation at the same time, as well as your understanding. And that's really the whole key when you're studying tactics too, is you want to notice elements. You'd say, okay, let's notice the general elements of the queen's activity versus the white king. And then what you want to do is you want to notice the activity of the white pieces aiming towards the black king. So notice that the rook is on the 8th rank. He's ready to check. The bishop, light square bishop, is basically aiming towards the king on h7. So rook takes, and now actually that's kind of a decoy move, because if the king takes, then now the queen can go to f8 check. The king has to go to h7 check, and then the king would go back. You can give another check. King goes back up again, and what do we do from here? It would be bishop takes. And this is why it's so important to kind of follow the logic towards the end, because this is how you'll find a lot of forcing moves and combinations without even knowing any patterns. It's just applying the logic. Of course, you need skills of visualization, and the pattern recognition helps. But even in this position, all right, so if you have that in your mind, the king takes, notice that all the pawns will be gone except here, and with the pawn on g4 covering the f5 and h5 square, and the pawn covering here, if the queen was here checking, then it would form a box, and it would basically trap the king. So let's go through the line. All right, rook check. That's exactly what we get here. Now you can see it more clearly when you actually play it. Bishop takes, king takes, and now the final move, queen to g8 checkmate. And we can visualize it clearly with the pawns covering here, and then the queen striking through these here, and then just going on along the g file. And that would be checkmate. It's a little hard to visualize, but this is how you improve your visualization, is now that you can actually see the position. This is a key point in, if you want to study one puzzle a day, I think you could improve quite a lot if you use that puzzle to improve your understanding day by day. All right, so let's go back. We know that final position, and what you want to do is you want to imagine that you're playing a game, and you want to imagine your thought process to find these tactics. So this is why looking for forcing moves as a habit is so important, because it'll lead you in a game to these kind of combinations. Because, you know, in a game, there's not somebody sitting there saying a combination is present, and now it's a tactical puzzle that you have to solve. So this is why clear thinking on every move is so important, in my opinion. All right, so basically you say, okay, I'm white to move, my queen is on the side, and black has a lot of activity, but you should also think about the general strategic ideas of each tactical position. So notice that the rook is over here on a5, and actually that makes perfect sense, because if the queen and the bishop are attacking the white king, but you have an extra rook attacking the black king along with your bishop and queen, then just logically you would have 5 points more activity. And because of that, that's actually why the logic in chess that you apply makes sense in this position, where he gets the rook over to deflect the king to h8, and then the queen, the bishop, and after you destroy all the pawn cover. All right, so you could just say, okay, I need to learn this pattern, and when I see it in the future, I'll apply it. But that's actually the biggest problem in chess, is you learn all these patterns, and then it's only after you blunder that you say, oh, I did know that pattern, I just couldn't apply it because I missed it. What you want to do is you want to focus on having clear thinking, and in the future, you'll be able to apply every pattern that you learn. All right, so I hope this was helpful, and I'm still thinking about including a puzzle before every video, but of course it won't be this long. But leave a comment below, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the future.